Thank you, Shanti, and assalamu alaikum to everyone, and a very good morning. What a good day for us, actually. We are so fortunate to have Professor Imtiaz Hussain amongst us. In fact, Professor Hussain is, in my understanding and observation, is one of his kind in our country, and he has been teaching, researching on international relations, I think for last three and a half decades now, and after spending more than 2 decades in North America, teaching and researching, he came back to his own homeland to spread the knowledge here. And he's the founder of the Department of Global Studies and Governance at Independent University, Bangladesh. And to his credit, there are more than 20 books written on different issues of international relations. Some of the major books that I can name here: Branding Bangladesh from Bottomless Pit to a Middle-Income Country, North American Homeland Security Back to Bilateralism, North American Regionalism, and Global South. American politics, especially US-Latin America relations. In the recent times, what we have been experiencing is a kind of I would say, shocking development in international politics, and that is because of a new form of US imperialism, experienced in different parts of the world, especially in Latin America. And when it comes to this new form of imperialism, the name that we hear always is of actually the US President Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is actually challenging the very world order that was established by the West under the leadership of the United States after the Second World War. And the rules-based world order that we have been living in since the Second World War is now at stake. And the first victim of that is actually Latin America. And we actually are very afraid because the implication of that will be felt in every corner of the world, and we have already felt that, and we don't know what's in store for us in near future. So that's the reason why we have selected this topic. And we have found Professor Imtiaz sir, and he is the expert. He is the most qualified person to talk about that. So today we are going to learn from him what happens in Latin America, in the name of so-called Donroe Doctrine, what it actually is, and how is it going to affect the so-called rules-based global order, and in light of that, what the states, especially from the global south, should do to get rid of some of the effects of that Donroe Doctrine. So Professor Imtiaz sir has come all the way from Dhaka, he took all the pain to travel from Dhaka to Jahangir University. We don't have this opportunity often. So today, as he's here, we would like to welcome him with a big applause. And we are so grateful to sir for being amongst us here, and I would like to request sir to start delivering his lecture on the topic titled "The Donroe Doctrine in Action: What it Means for Latin America and the Rest of the World." Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Salam, and I hope we have a constructive session in which I hope you will learn something about this. I don't think you need to be worried about shock in international relations. It happens all the time. And whenever there is a change of leadership, you will have more of it. And if you don't believe me, the last change of global leadership was in the 1930s. What can I tell you about the 1930s? It had the Great Depression simply because something we're doing now, tariffs. Because of that, we had 10 years of depression. How do you get out of it? How do you rebuild the economy? Have a war. So war ashe nai kintu ashteche, and you have to be ready for it. And as I tell my students at IUB Global Studies and the second name of governance, anything under the sky, we should be able to have governance on it. And I want to repeat the same thing to you. It's a very brand new game happening. Chakri pele, you have to know it. And secondly, you have competition for chakri. Age it would be international, onno desh theke ashto chakri niye jeto. এখন তো automation will be knocking on your door from your own home. And therefore, unless you know the issues well and you can beat the technology, it will be very hard. So I think you need to work harder on the issues. But the whole idea of the Donroe, I hate to the one thing about the Donroe Doctrine is that it comes from the Monroe Doctrine, which has a lot of legitimacy. It is protecting your territory and your nationalism. So therefore, it is very natural product, but it was not taken also as just that. There were other reasons that I will try to explain today. But the Monroe Doctrine is very legitimate, and Donroe, আমরা যত Donroe বলি, তত এটা legitimize হয়ে যাচ্ছে when it is really an illegitimate policy approach. So be careful how you propagandize it, advertise it, articulate it. Just maybe using some other label might be much better instead of glorifying this label. The whole idea came out last year in the US National Security Strategy, and ekhanei lekha ache, it will preserve Latin American sovereignty from especially Europe, jeta Monroe Doctrine wanted to preserve. Onno kichu chinta kore. But in this case right now, many Latin countries are looking elsewhere, and some other countries are dominant more than the United States inside Latin America. So this is one way to stop that, and therefore it is sowing the seeds of globalizing the Monroe Doctrine. And John Leakage, you can see, not only against Europe intervention as originally, but against power that is neither the United States nor even native to the region. It's a hint, basically, at China. And China has huge inroads. And this was Venezuela, 3rd of January this year. It was slowly building up. No country sends an aircraft carrier, which is a huge enterprise. Just that one ship, the main ship, has over 5,000 troops inside it. 5,000. And therefore, when you have the whole armada, you're going to have many more. You do not deploy them unnecessarily. It is very expensive, especially Jokon, the person behind Donroe Doctrine, Donald Trump, is complaining about oil prices. কত যে খরচ হবে এটা তো চিন্তা করতেছে না। But you know, the whole idea is that এটা হয়ে গেলে we'll be that much better off. And so the armada was coming to Venezuela. 3 tarike, very surprisingly, it got both the President Maduro and his wife Celia দুজনকে নিয়ে চুপচাপ অন্য কিছু করে taken to the United States. That is Venezuela, and it was left through the parliament. It was left in the vice president's hands, Rodriguez. And so basically then with the change of government, same system, যে system Maduro chilo, vice president একই থাকবে. So you're not going to get much of an ideological change, and I don't think that Donald Trump is interested in ideological changes. মুখে যে একটা কথা বলে না, rhetoric is rhetoric. একটা চাপা মেরে চলে যাও সবাই বুঝতে পারবে, তাই না? But in pragmatic terms, there's no substance behind it. So Venezuela was done. It is the first case of the Donroe Doctrine, as he would like it to be. And at the same time, mention was made of other Latin countries. And the top among them is Colombia. And Colombia, because of drug trafficking, and toda ekটু চিন্তা করো, you're doing governance, চিন্তা করো, drug trafficking, সব drugs যাচ্ছে United States. Is it the problem of the supplier, or is it the problem of the consumer? Consumers they ধরবে নাকি suppliers that punish? The public wants it and are living with it and happy with it, addicted to it. Why are you hitting the suppliers? They're playing neoliberalism. Pure markets, supply demand হচ্ছে. What's wrong with that? It is exactly what the United States has been preaching since the Cold War finished. So why punish that and then? And what happened is that basically United States wants to get rid of one of the largest purchasers of Venezuelan oil, the largest oil deposit on this planet is China. China ke choke. Eta ami pore ashbo. It is to choke China. এখন China কি করবে? Because Trump has said no more to China. And পরশুদিন বা গতকালকে, I think you saw the news. Suddenly, Trump is speaking, not Narendra Modi. Trump is saying, India আর রাশিয়া থেকে কিনবে না। কোথা থেকে কিনবে? Venezuela. So this is the kind of twisting the arm to make policies, and this is what is now happening. So Colombia, interestingly, just 2 days ago, the president Petra, who used to be well known, very much liked, leftist guerrilla, he's now the president. Trump had called him a sick man. And after the pressure পাচ্ছে United States থেকে, কি করে, how can he even breathe? But day before yesterday, he was in the White House, and Donald Trump, as he always says, in the White House, very nice man, very nice man. So ওর বাসায় গেলে ওই হোয়াইট হাউসে গেলে সবাই হোয়াইট হয়ে যায়। You know, otherwise outside বাইরে থাকলে সবাই কালো থাকে, এরকম একটা চলে আসে। But you know, it's a little kind of disturbing. And you know what the top cartel responded or reacted to this? They were actually having negotiations with Petra's government. Since he was leftist guerrilla, they were having negotiations. Today, they stopped it. And therefore it is going to hurt somewhere, some people, if not in Venezuela. Yes, in Venezuela, because the farmers, they have nothing else and they're so used to producing cocoa. What's wrong with cocoa? Coffee. What's the problem? And so that it is converted into something else, cocaine, is a different thing. It's not their business. They have to feed their own kids. How will they survive? And if this is what is selling, keno korbe na? And so therefore they're not having that broad knowledge here that they can look into the United States and say, ooh, ওদের দেখো বাচ্চারা সব কোকেইন অ্যাডিক্ট হয়ে যাচ্ছে, আর করবো না। এটা তো হয় না। If your income, you have to make both ends meet. So there are some reactions already to him visiting the United States. And the United States has been using many manipulative policies to restrict Colombia. So Otagalo, Colombia, next in line, and the third case is going to be Cuba. The one country যেটার জন্য Donroe Doctrine যখন 1898 United States defeated a world power, Spain. ওদিক দিয়ে Philippines নিয়ে নিল, আর এখানে Cuba. And so the first time, which is now being revived, is that they saw Donroe Doctrine not as a Latin policy approach, but as multilateral. And সেটাই এখন আমরা দেখতেছি হচ্ছে in Latin America. Not as a Latin policy, but as a multilateral approach. And so Cuba কি কত আরো বেশি arm twisting হচ্ছে এখানে. And especially because Cuba is based very heavily on Russian and Chinese economic assistance, trade, everything. And this the United States does not like. You heard of the Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962 October? ওটার জন্য Cuban missiles এর জন্য রাশিয়াকে কোয়ারেন্টাইন করা হলো। JFK, President Kennedy did it. But this one is a little different. It is mostly trade, and China has made some good economic trade agreements. So many countries, which is why it is climbing faster than any other country. So therefore, United States does not like that, and therefore Cuba is probably going to be on the hit list very soon. Dekhte hobe. And the other countries, of course, Greenland ta kintu akash theke pore jay nai. Lots of businessmen, and who knows businessmen better than this billionaire called Donald Trump? He knows them very well. And দেখলো যে আরে বাপরে বাপ গ্রিনল্যান্ড, and তোমরা যদি দেখো তোমাদের একটা হিউজ একটা এরিয়া অফ রিসার্চ, হিউজ এরিয়া আনট্যাপড, and ওখানে কি হচ্ছে? Two important issues. Number one, ice is melting. So that means new navigation routes from the north Arctic Circle থেকে যাওয়া আসা করবে। And so you need to look at that because it might open up many conflicts. Europeans are interested in that, China, Russia certainly, all of them. And so this is going to be the next Straits of Hormuz. And so keep it in mind, he's never said no to European leaders when he met them last month. He said, okay, we'll think about it, talk about it. Into think and talk about it, he knows how to also turn your arm. Europeans are in very desperate condition at home. They might give you lots of concessions, or they will just have to gulp something they don't like. And Greenland is on the hit list for that reason. It has a lot of rare earth. And rare earth are extremely important because they are going to be fueling not just weapons, but intelligence and petroleum exploring. What are the few mati theke items left to exploit? This is the biggest set. Quite a few of them. Teen charta ache. Look them up, read them, where they are located. China has a lot of them. United States would like to monopolize them. Egli shob hocche. And so, Greenland is, and the interesting thing is that Greenland and United States and Madhome, Canada, we're all feeling a little bit of pity for Canada. Keep your United States, but don't be so humble. I have heard from a Canadian colleague that more than half of the people, especially in the West, would prefer to be under Trump than under Toronto or Ottawa. So basically keep that in mind as you think Canada, especially to other higher education, and higher education okhane ja maar khache is going to be tough. It's getting hit everywhere. And the United States is also shifting us away from education in a way that you have not seen the consequences. But consequences, you'll be the first generation to see the consequences of that. Chakri hishabe, onno kichu hishabe. And of course, there's Mexico. And Mexico, not only because of fentanyl, the drug, age to cocaine chilo, the new drug, but also lots of historically, until last year, illegal immigrants. একেবারে বর্ডারটা বন্ধ করে দেওয়া হয়েছে, ইটস লাইক বাংলাদেশ ইন্ডিয়া বর্ডারের মতো হয়ে গেছে। So in that sense then, Mexico is on the hit list, and so therefore 4 cases that might come in the Donroe territory. Kintu, as I say in the next chapter, in the next page, as I say in the next page, it's just a step. Is it just a step towards global policy? And so far we are talking hypothetically, nothing has been confirmed. Hote pare, now hote pare. So like your thesis, you have to begin with a hypothesis, and hypothesis says you cannot have an answer because you must test it first. Test na kore uttor dite parben. And so ekhane test. You're going to test whether Donroe Doctrine is globalized or not. And shekhane, let me take 2 examples. One example we have already seen, and that is Gaza. And আমার একটা hypothesis আছে, এটা ঠিকঠাক করতে হবে। If you want to beat me to do it, আমার এত কাম পারি না। If you want to beat me to do it, I'll be happy to read it, আর আমাকে কষ্ট করতে হবে না। But that hypothesis is simply that তোমার এখানে US policy is being written in Tel Aviv, not in Washington, D.C. Eta is the hypothesis that I want to test. And ekhane kichu confirmation dite pari. In February, the first month of Donald Trump's presidency, 1 year ago, Netanyahu came. That is the first time he talked about Riviera, Gaza as a Mediterranean Riviera. And Riviera to tumra jano, lofty, beautiful buildings, restaurants, go-go places, all of these thakbe. And therefore, Palestinians said ki, and she uttoro diye dilo. Keno? Pashe to you have Egypt, pashe you have Jordan, ওদের ওখানে চলে যাবে। Everyone in the world, local, regional, global, dubbed it ethnic cleansing, as it is. But ওটা চুপচাপ করে রেখে দিল, but we knew, if you are reading into the between the lines, you knew কি না কি হতে পারে। And পরে আমরা দেখব যে অক্টোবরে দেখব যে হয়ে যাচ্ছে। When we come to rate the Gaza yeta peace plan, ওটা দেখবে অক্টোবরে। But before October, Gaza yeta niye Netanyahu came a second time, April, and both of them then issued a 60-day ultimatum to Iran. 60 days, uranium enrichment korbe na, because International Atomic Energy Association have given the information that Iran is ready to enrich the uranium. Eta hole to your nuclear capabilities onek improved hoye jabe. And at the same time, it was building intercontinental ballistic missiles. The short range now, long range. And Israel was petrified, not petrified, but they're at the top of the technological, software technological changes. They are absolutely at the top, which is why, as I will explain later, Israel is probably going to be a future great power. Free riding on the United States. So if France, Germany, Italy, they're done. For many other reasons for which we don't have time to discuss today. But anyway, in that meeting they even created a great trust. This is the Gaza Reconstitution and Economic Acceleration and Transformation Trust. Great trust. মানে কিভাবে চেঞ্জ করবে before change আরম্ভ হওয়ার আগে থেকে। So this whole Gaza thing, and it was written by US and Israeli scientists, millionaires and billionaires, because other business is going to profit immensely, and technological, military technology. So all of these are going to benefit. This was done, and even Tony Blair, the British Prime Minister, the ex, he had created his own trust. And that trust, Institute for Global Change, he was also involved. So these are the people behind. If you think there's a genocide going on in Gaza, these are the persons behind it. And I think even international organization level, United Nations, genocide namtai ora affirm koreche. And so, if these are the people doing that, and then piche ekon dakho, Epstein niye ki hocche. And these are leaders who don't like leaders like Putin, and they don't like Maduro. And so you ask yourself, your values are being absolutely demolished, ekdik diye Epstein yeta. Onno dik diye international relations is being completely demolished. By going and hitting, ekkebare bashaye giye, they can pick you up and take you away. That's where international warfare is moving. Not in battlefields. Putin ki na ki khamoka korteche. Just go and pick the person you want. Shob thik thak hoye jabe. Learn from Israel and learn from the United States. So that's where the next generation of warfare is going to go. And I think you need to also keep that in mind. So, in October, the 20-point Gaza peace plan, jeta ekhon, ei kebol ekhon, stage 2 te dhukeche, which means Rafah madhyome, some Palestinians can go out for medical treatment, some can come back, and the interrogation they are having, ora bollo to, 3 ghonta. And atto ye kore na, they really make it so difficult for you to enter that you want to go back. But if you didn't have children left, you will still go through that. And Israel is allowing only 20 of them a day, kintu jache matro first day 5 jon. Gotakalke 16. So they're completely curtailing every citizen of Gaza. That means everyone will be under the control of Tel Aviv. And we have talked about, and there are lots of proofs to say that Hamas is a creation of Israel. It's been proved many times in the past. Western scholars, Eastern scholars, shobai bole. So that is taken as a given. And ei bhabe jodi korteche, that is pretty much against civilization, pretty uncivil. How can countries that claim to be civilized behave in this way? It's a big questions. And so in that Gaza peace plan, 20 point, they started out, and Akon, January, they have moved to stage 2, and slowly absorbing some of them and letting others go out, and Israel would like them to stay out forever. And so you can see that the original plan, Riviera plan, that is slowly taking place. And this is ethnic cleansing, keo ekon ki bolbe, ekta tariff mere dile chupchap hoye jay. And if India is really buying oil from Venezuela, India jodi chupchap hoye jay, how will the smaller countries perform? So we have big problems coming up, and then of course the Armada, just like in Venezuela, now going to Iran. And again, emon bhabe koreche, unless you come and talk, we're going to go and bomb. Oje 60-day notice diyechilo 2025 April. In June, when the 60 days were done, Israel, much before the United States, went and started bombing, not nuclear missiles, Bashai giye killed the actual persons. And it could not hit the nuclear missiles because they were deep in the mountains. So I think on the 22nd of June, United States went and bombed them. And তখন basically United States gave Iran the ultimatum that come and talk. তিনটা দাবি আছে, enrichment of uranium বন্ধ করো, যেগুলি আছে ইয়ে করে দাও, eliminate them. ICBM, any missiles একেবারে পারবে না. And that not because আমাদেরকে hit করবে United States, but because Israel is going to be hit. And Israel had done enough damage to Israel a June যুদ্ধর মধ্যে. What they did was that when the drones, and you have many of them coming, and the drones, Iran is covered by the Iron Dome. Or Iron Dome একটু ভেঙে গেলে, then lots of drones can get in. And Iran found that out. And Israel got very worried. And so they quickly had to do something. United States ke giye bollo, bomb these. So charta nuclear plants, and even the research center where all these are going on, uranium nuclear research, sharp on the curriculum. So therefore, United States again has shown Iran, and here I want to make a couple of my own observations. আগে বলেছি, আবার বলবো, এটা যে করতেছে না, it is hypothetically choking China, not Iran as much. Iran thappor khache, but China. Why? And the argument is simple. China has 3 or 4 major suppliers of oil. Topmost is Russia. United States cannot do anything. ওখানে second, Venezuela. যা করতে হবে হয়ে গেছে. Third, Iran. And so Iran is next. Let's see what happens if China থামবে কি না. What China has done আগে থেকেই, Straits of Hormuz দিয়ে বের হচ্ছে না, supply যাচ্ছে না. These are now going overland, given the proximity of the two countries. So therefore, huge geopolitical tension হচ্ছে ওখানে. All right. So this is the. Now let's go to the dignified Donroe Doctrine, and then you can see how over 10 years, over a century, at least 10 cases supporting it have come not just from the United States, but from outside as well. And you will also find violation of the Donroe Doctrine. All right. এখানে সব লেখা আছে Donroe Doctrine, but basically this tells us much more clearer in the table. এটার পরে এখান থেকে খালি বলতে চাই that 1823-তে, exactly roughly 200 years ago, State of the Union একটা address দিতে হয়, and that is when James Monroe made this. And he said it basically, at that time United States, Mississippi River পর্যন্ত যায়নি. It was just 13 states expanding. And basically this is the time of the cowboys. Right now. And so United States তখন থেকে বুঝতে পারলো এই European colonies যেখানে আছে, Spain had the most, Portugal had the biggest one, Brazil, and then there was of course the two West Europeans, Great Britain and France. France had been a big supporter of US independence against Great Britain. So France খুবই খুশি, and many founding fathers United States, ওদের education and upbringing, especially when Benjamin Franklin, Paris হয়েছিল. That was when Paris was #1 in the world. The philosophical movement, যেটা থেকে Jean-Jacques Rousseau বের হলো. And because of him, you had the French Revolution. This last line would be something like, workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains. Became the sentence that Karl Marx would also popularize in Das Kapital. But anyway, so ekhane koyekta those, Great Britain was the only country in Europe that did not like the US, that liked the United States policy, didn't like the European policy. Europeans, the shop monarchy, Congress of Vienna, which I hope you know something about. So you know about Metternich. Metternich supported the states of Latin America. 1820s, they were all protesting like we were. 1940s, for independence. And many of them got it, pura puri purishkar na, but they were getting it. 1820s. And that is when he made this, that Europeans should not come here. The West is separate from the East, by which he meant West Europe. And তোমাদের কোনা থেকে যা ইচ্ছা করো, এখানে আসবে না. But the monarchs of Europe that Metternich was trying to balance, all the emperors, তিনটা emperors, ওদেরকে, they wanted it. The French, the Russians, they wanted it. And this is when comments were made. Great Britain also said, "Amra tumader sathe na." And Metternich also said it should not happen. Monarchs in Latin America. Against it, you will find 2 of them. In favor, you will find 10 of them at least. Next, patate dekhabo the table form. But ekhane just those against it. When the United States was having its civil war, the French Napoleon III invaded and took Mexico. United States kichu korte pare nai. Huge violation of the Donroe Doctrine. But United States could not do anything. Civil war jonno. And so that was one. And then 1880s, 1890s, Otto von Bismarck. Another name I think tumra jano. The person who created Germany, not only created it, but created it in Paris, in the Hall of Mirrors. Just think about it. Atto সাহস হয়ে গেছিল। ওই সাহস দিয়ে বললো যে United States এই পলিসিটা ইনসলেন্স, একটা ইনসাল্টিং একটা কমেন্ট দিয়ে দিল। But many others were favoring it. Great Britain, especially with the Falkland Islands. ওটা ছাড়তে চায় না, ইউরোপিয়ানসরা এসে নিয়ে নেবে, এটাও চায় না। So you have এখানে on the left-hand side, you will see quite a few, যেখানে তারা আছে, you'll see a new kind of support. And that support is interesting. It's not just from Great Britain, it is coming from many Latin countries. Because Donroe was really protecting their sovereignty, their nationality. And that's why it was so popular. And you can look at them. Hawaii যখন নিতে চেয়েছিল 1842, তখন বলে দিল ইউরোপিয়ানসকে একেবারে হাওয়াইতে যাবে না। 1842, তারপরে chronologically you'll see quite a few. James Polk, one of the first to use manifest destiny, সেই নামটা আমরা আজকাল বলি পপুলিজম। এই পপুলিজমে বলো greatest civilization আমেরিকা পুরা ল্যাটিন আমেরিকাকে সিভিলাইজ করবে। He is the one who took Mexico থেকে পুরা এটা। But like that, you had quite a few others. And then, as I mentioned before, Spain ke jokon defeat kora holo 1898, United States was no longer, it had reached the Pacific Ocean. Mostly, Mexico ke defeat korlo 1898, jokon Mexico was much bigger than the United States. Pura Texas ta niye nilo, defeat করলো Tratado the Hidalgo Guadalupe through that treaty 1848. Quite a few other chunks came out. পরে ম্যাপটা next page দেখাবো। So huge part, especially west of the Mississippi নিয়ে নিল। So bulk of the United States then ওইভাবে আসলো। And that is why it is awfully important that Donroe Doctrine is now getting connected with land expansion. So in that sense, we cannot blame Donald Trump. ওই expansion-টা পুরা Latin America তো পকেটে। এখন আর কি বাকি এশিয়া, আফ্রিকা, ইউরোপ ওইগুলিকে এখন পকেটে। ওইটাই করতেছে। To be ambitious at a time when I think we are a little too informed and a little too intellectually alert, and we also have weapons with which we can fight back, whether it is arms or whether it is software. And I will say something about software for it. এইগুলি সব হচ্ছে, and most important is that Argentina's Donroe Doctrine approved it 1903. তার পাশেই Theodore Roosevelt corollary that also reaffirmed the Donroe Doctrine, and a defeat 1898 defeated পরে the second Roosevelt, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he founded the Organization for American States, and he founded it in 1933, just when the tariffs were being imposed. United States had imposed it, his previous president. He wanted to get rid of it, so he basically did it, and he also said what was said in 1898, that Donroe Doctrine is multilateral, not just Latin American. So it was awfully important. And since then, whether it's the Cold War, John Foster Dulles, keep all of the communists out. Successful beshi hoyne, Cuba became communist, 1958. এরকম অনেক হচ্ছিল, so resistance ছিল. Latin Americans don't always like following the United States, and আমরা ওখান থেকে কিছুই শিখতেছি না, খালি লেজটা একটু ঢুকাই দিয়ে we just follow and follow, and we cannot stand up and support our position because of এটা হবে ওইটা হবে, and of course, Cuban Missile Crisis, it was also very important. At least 10 cases that supported the Donroe Doctrine. But at the same time, through coup d'etat, they shop treaties, agreements, written things, action. If they're not on our side, democratic election, প্রো যারা তাদেরকে সাপোর্ট দিলে, না দিলে সিআইকে গিয়ে কিছু না কিছু একটা করতে পারো। And so that's what has been happening. Look at all of the United States, 1945, one country, leader of the world. ওই মার্শাল প্ল্যান ইউরোপকে না দিলে ডেভেলপ করতে পারতো না। সিমিলারলি জাপানকে না দিলে হতো না। 5-6 বছরে their development was such, United States felt good. And so basically, the United States also proposed democracy. এইগুলি যদি আমরা দেখি, it doesn't shed good light on democracy. Democracy must be manipulated by coup d'etat, popular leaders being kicked out because they were pro-Soviet Union or they were anti-United States or something like that. And so it is important to keep in mind all of the, and if you look at it, half of all countries in Latin America, half of them had a coup. Even next door neighbor Mexico, Veracruz port, this was before the United States entered World War I. So all of these things were happening, and I think it's important for you to remember. Acha, let me move on. How are we doing with time?
So you can take as much as long as we are okay with this.
Yes.
Acha, ekhane tale, the United States is just a land person. মানে জমিদার, একেবারে নওয়াবের মতো, যেখান থেকে চা পায়, না পেলে hit the west coast in any way that you like, and after the west coast, go to Asia Pacific. Hawaii taniye now, lovely place because you can keep your ships, navy ওখানে, and then আস্তে আস্তে করে Japan ki defeat kora holo. So basically, Asia Pacific is still, in the 21st century, it is still that westward movement that began in 1776. Ota ekhone cholche. And the United States was helped because Europeans loved fighting tokhon, khali katakati. Even though Treaty of Vienna, 1815 brought peace, more peace than ever before. But still, katakati chilo. And ওই কাটাকাটির মধ্যে দেখবেন Louisiana Purchase. And you can tell from the name, this is the French connection. Louis, King Louis. Louis the 14th, 16th, the major emperors France has had. And France is having lots of fighting. India, for example, communist Russia, Soviet Union could not do. He had every piece of property on continental Europe up until Moscow. Moscow, it was the winter that defeated him. He came back, and when he came back, it's a dirty story. I don't want to get into it because it's not here. But Waterloo was where we saw what was happening. The stock market in London, it is mostly dominated by the Jews, Zionists. And they threw out a rumor Napoleon has won in Waterloo. Sharp stock market bikri kore dilo, all stocks, and they bought them all. And they got the news from a pigeon. Pigeon traveled faster than people tokon. So by the time the others got the news, একদিন পরে Napoleon was defeated. Are আমার stocks কোথায় গেল? But they had lost them complete. This is going to dominate the 19th century conflict and 20th century and 21st century, by the way. So, military industrial complex, এখান থেকে আরম্ভ